Wow. So it is 1:30, so we can go ahead and get started. So welcome to the County of San Mateo Coastside Design Review Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, February 13, 2025, and it is now 1:30 p.m. And this hearing consists of one project and is being audio recorded. There are two opportunities for the public to speak on items. This includes one for public comment period on matters on the agenda, and also another item on the agenda, another area on the agenda for matters that are not on the agenda. And for the fairness and orderliness of this meeting, please limit your speech to 3 minutes or less. And the Design Review Committee's decision for item number one, if any, will only be in the form of a recommendation regarding project compliance with design review guidelines and standards, and not the final decision on the project, which will take place at a later date. And as a reminder, the CDRC does not review matters related to zoning standards, local coastal policies, or the general plan, and will only review projects based on the design review guidelines and standards. So with that, we'll move on to roll call. Mark Stagmeyer, not present. John Stedman. Present. Julian Martinez, not present. April Bingham, not present. Moshe Porter, not present. Mark Din. Here. And James Bennington. And Rebecca Katkin. Okay, with that, we'll move on to chairperson's report. Mark Stegmeyer is not here, but the chairperson report was provided. So let's see what he put on here. Regarding old business, he has the previously discussed demonstration of scale with the link there. The letter has been sent to Supervisor Ray Mueller on January 20th.
It was sent about a week ago.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to stagger it to give the planning staff some time to. Well, yeah, just to, yeah, exactly. Absorb it and talk amongst yourself and be ready for that potential call or email from the supervisor.
And you sent it to Steve Monowitz, I want to say even before that, right?
Yeah, I sent it to you guys and Steve Monowitz, just.
About a month? No.
Yeah, maybe about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then to Supervisor Mueller's office, I copied his chief of staff, so they acknowledge receiving it.
Okay, Gina.
Good, thank you for that. So he also has a item on here regarding the CEQA review for the CDRC members. We did go over a small sort of presentation for that a couple weeks back. If there's any questions on that, please feel free to reach out to myself or Camille and we can help guide through that. Regarding attention to proper protocol, I'll just read what he has written here. On returning applicants from a continuance to ensure that each and every item on the list of requirements brought by the committee are fulfilled. And in the case of preconditions such as story poles or other means of demonstration of scale need to be approved prior to the start of the hearing, for that case. And a few items here regarding new business. Camille attended a Midcoast Community Council meeting yesterday at 7 and gave him a brief presentation regarding the Design Review Committee here. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, actually, Lisa, if you could open the presentation, there's a couple slides I want to share with you guys. But I did share with them just sort of the basics of CDRC. They have several new members. So they were curious. So the next one, so I just kind of gave them the people who staff this at the county, the total positions of in totality, as well as the next one, the area in which you guys have authority and the types of projects, only residential projects or something with a residential component that you have authority over. And then positions wise, that we're looking for Algranada specifically, and some of the alternates that are not available, and also looking for 2 architects. How to apply for vacancies, what the process is overall in terms of the zoning compliance before it even comes to CDRC, there's a call for whether it's a design review exemption or design review permit, but go down, down, down. Go down, the part that I wanted to share with you guys, I didn't want to inform them without informing you about this pending design review ordinance update. I know we've been talking about it, but I gave them some more specifics that I wanted to share with you guys. So we are updating the standards, to be objective, which is really just good for everybody, but also required for state law, especially as they apply in the coast to ADUs and SB 35. But on the bay side, their design standards are in the same order, in the same regulation, and they're subject to SB 9, SB 35 and ADUs. So it's like, we really need it. So we really just, instead of just looking at the bay side, because of SB 9, that's really affecting things on the bay side. We just took a broad look at everything to make them more objective, and also to, if you guys recall, a couple years ago, maybe, we did a page by page turn of the standards book, and so I incorporated all of the feedback from that as well. And it includes a height definition clarification. I don't know if you recall, but the MCC 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they were saying that they wanted to change how height is measured in the C1 to be the same as how it's measured in the R1, which is at every point, which is like average high roof peak to low plate. So
I thought it was at any point.
in the R1 it's at any point, but in the C1 it's not. So it results in a higher height.
R1 used to be
Because
the
it's an
same way,
average.
so if it's like so, you take the mean, and then you take your 28 feet from the middle.
Yeah, so
Whereas
it's like
now,
it gives you,
now it's a.
yeah, it's like average peak to average grade.
Okay.
So anyway, this would change that height measurement to be consistent in all design.
In which direction?
In the more, stringent direction at every point.
So it's 28 feet from every point, rather
It
than.
doesn't change the R1, it changes.
The C1.
Right, it's not what I mean, it's changing the C1
Yeah,
to reflect what's done in R1.
yeah.
Okay.
And then,
Not surprised.
also incorporating storage pool regulation per your letter, for the most part. I expect to have, I would have to say, I got a lot of questions about the storage pool at the NCC, and I think, you know, I have to say, there's such a kind of a consistent feeling, there's like such knowledge of storage pools on CDRC, there's like both the developer side as well as like the neighbor benefit from storage pools. But I would say that the MCC, they were just asking kind of for information, like they didn't, I have to say they weren't.
They didn't know it was not required.
I mean, I don't think they knew it was not required. I don't think that they know that there is a strong support for it, or even the developer side, the costly side of it. So they were very curious about it, so that was interesting, and I pointed them to the letter that was generated a couple of minutes back. I hope they can find it online. But anyway, I just wanted to update you guys. And, so it's coming back. It's not coming back, it's actually for the first time to the CDRC, this draft design review ordinance update, hopefully at the next meeting is March, so next meeting, we'll get roll.
It'll be agendized.
Yes, it will be agendized, but I wanted to give you guys a heads up, and I will post it as soon as possible, because it's like pages long.
Is there,
So-
is it such that a red line can be
Yes,
provided?
a red line will be provided, for sure. Just wanna give you.
Okay, anything else on this PowerPoint for now? Or-
No.
And just continuing on the letter provided, please review new comments and double check 24 hours before the hearing for revisions, addendums, to the projects for accuracy. And if there is old or new business that board members would like to have, on chair report to, please email, Marks and discuss. Any other comments from anybody? Anything else to add? Okay. Yes.
Okay, we have 5 minutes before we can start the first item.
And I will, before we do that, just open up, public comment for matters not on the agenda.
We roll call.
Oh, can you put me on roll call?
Yes. Just for the record, April Bingham has come into the meeting. Is a formal roll call needed, or is that sufficient? Okay. So now we will open up the meeting for public comment on matters that are not on the agenda. Let me see if we have anybody online. So for those attending this meeting in person, speaker forms are available on the back wall near the entrance. Please provide your speaker form as soon as possible. And for those on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to indicate your desire to speak. And for those joining by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. And pressing *6 will both mute and unmute your microphone. Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak for public comments on matters that are not on the agenda? I do not see any raised hand, and it appears that all the speaker request forms provided are for item that is on the agenda, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind making a public comment. if
Please
that's
go
okay.
ahead. Mhm.
I just wanna affirm what Camille, right, was saying about the story polls. They made all the difference in terms of being able to visualize things. And I know they're not perfect, right, but just, yeah, strong support.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to provide public comment again for matters not on the agenda? So seeing none. We will now close the public comment, and we have 3 minutes until 1:45 for the first item that's agendized.
3 minutes of awkward time.
So it is now 1:45. So with that, we can move on to agenda item number 1. John Stedman, as the community representative, would you like to introduce the item by reading the description?
Absolutely. We are here for consideration of a design review permit recommendation for a major modification to a project. Recommended for approval at CDRC meeting of February 9th, 2023. Construction of a new 1,670 square foot, 3-story, single-family residence with an attached 371 square foot garage and 790 square foot accessory dwelling unit on a legal 7,070 square foot parcel. Can we stop there? Do I need to read the whole thing?
That's fine, I can.
Yeah,
look
that's
down
fine.
For the rest.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for that. So with that, the applicant's representative is present. Don't know if you'd like to go over the design elements of the project or address any comments made at the prior meeting.
Absolutely. I'm Jason Silva with Hawk Design Consulting. So we did have a couple of comments. There was 2 requirements that was brought up last time regarding some of the standards. 2 of the standards was an element of design and egress entry and garage that was per the section 65.20 D, 1B and 1A. 1A was element of design, architectural details that appear proportional and complementary to other homes in the neighborhood. One of the comments was our home was boxy. And the other comment was it didn't step up the grade enough. And then I think the other 2 comments was the facade materials articulation, add some siding, and then of course, number 2, which was 1B, was address, entry, and garage to maintain a residential rather than an institutional or commercial look. So those are all kind of subjective to me. So what I did was I went around and I actually took a picture of a couple of projects that were recently approved. Those projects that were recently approved are here. I didn't include those, but for example, this project here. To help set the standard, what's acceptable. So here you see, we have a home here that's been recently approved by the CDRC. And this home, has mostly 90-degree angles, more boxy,
That one was approved in 2020, actually.
2020. And as you can see, here's the homes that are in the area. So this just kind of sets a standard of what's acceptable, right, for the CDRC, so that we can understand the distinctions of what's boxy or what's not boxy, or how things step up elevations. There is one that's more recent that hasn't been built yet, that was permitted. That's this project here. It's 148 San Pedro. This home here is at 36 feet to the height. It does step out over the downslope. And it appears to be more boxier than ours, actually. So that being said, I looked at all the other homes in the area that have been recently built or have been recently approved. And we brought pictures of our project that are not actually 3D, because I think it makes it a little bit easier to get an idea of how you set the project up of the elevation. So this is the rear of the project here. And as you can see, I think one of the things that was mentioned last time was the furthest wall was actually taller than the rest of the building. But the furthest wall is actually 23 feet tall in the rear. And then it steps back 5'4", goes up to 35'8", steps back, goes up to 35'5", steps back again, goes up to 32'8", and then goes to the front elevation. Instead of stepping up, we actually came back down from 28'9" to 26'8", and then to 15'6". So I believe that addresses the stepping back from the rear mass. Also, we're about 350%, we're at 67 feet from the rear yard to the building. So we're not the 20-foot setback, we're at 67 feet. So that moves our rear mass so far back. I did the calculations, it's 325% further back than required here, and 350% further back than required here. So I think that meets that requirement. And then also, we're not at 90-degree angles. This lower level here is at a 60-degree angle. So a box would refer to a 90-degree angle, box frame construction. And our roof is a 412 pitch, and I think that's 19% slope. So again, it's not a 90-degree angle, so it doesn't have that flat like a lot of these homes in the area do. One of the things I did appreciate was it was recommended to add some siding. I was kind of fighting that a little bit because we wanted to go all stucco, but once we added the siding, it came up pretty nice. And what we did was we added siding around the entire building. You can see here, here, and here. So the ADU, we've added some siding. And then the upper level here, we've added some siding.
You might consider flipping that around quickly, hard.
Yeah.
There you go. Sorry, so they can get a good control. Sorry to cut you off, Jason.
As a matter of fact,
Yeah,
you guys can have it. Want to take a look at it. 2B. This was 2B, so it was the front entry garage elevation. And of course, the requirement of 2B is to complement other homes in the area. As you know, other homes in the area all have gable ends, a lot of siding, there is some stucco. I think we covered all of that. I do want to say on the articulation, there's really no specifics on articulation percentage wise. So we have 40%, 47% siding, 53% stucco. So we're almost 50% in articulation. So, and then the entryway here, we added an eave over the entryway, which was recommended. And then we recommended that we add two-car garage. And I think that added a lot to the project.
Sorry, you added the garage or?
No, we added the two
Two,
garages.
it was one last time, sorry, it wasn't here.
Yeah, you weren't here, Rebecca, I'm sorry.
Got it.
Yeah, if you look back, it had a single
It
door. I
was a
think that
single.
actually looks a lot.
We
Yeah.
had an overhang for the front door,
Mhm.
but the architect required an eave, which I think added to the look of the home.
Yeah.
Actually looks really good.
To texture, thank you. So, and then you guys saw the left elevation. The reason why I'm showing you this is because our program Revit, kind of causes optical illusion, so it kind of distorts the real look of the home. So we brought other actual elevations, just so it shows the massing better. You can go over there, just. Okay. So this is the elevation facing Twine's home. And by the way, because we're 67 feet back and your home's around 47 feet back, create a great view corridor from your kitchen window all the way to your living room. We shouldn't be interfering with that, looking through this way. So again, we added siding here below, siding here at this pop out. We added this pop out because they wanted a little more texture on the side here, Rebecca, so we added this pop out. And then, of course, we added the 2x8 over the top of the windows. The stucco is like a plaster stucco natural finish, and it's a natural wood finish. And then the roof will match the color of the building. So it'll be a light gray also. The rear. This is the rear of the
The
property.
shingle, or what kind of roofing is it?
It's comp, it'll be like a gap. Yeah, GF, yeah, composition roofing. This is the lower level, this is the ADU. This is the living, this is actually the living room. And this is the rear of the building. As you can see, the mass is similar to other homes in the area. It's complementary to other homes in the area. So with that being said, I think we took care of the term boxing, which was one of the issues originally. I think our home is less boxy than some of the homes that have been improved in the area. Element of design complementary to other homes in the neighborhood. I think our home is more in alignment with other homes in the neighborhood, complementary to other homes in the neighborhood, as opposed to some that have been improved recently that sets precedents. The massing towards the back, I think we got rid of a lot of massing towards the back. Again, we're at 325 feet from the rear. And then we addressed the garage and entry. As you saw in the front, we added the two-door garage that was recommended. And then we went ahead and added the eave over the entry. So everything that was recommended, we kind of addressed. And then utilizing different facade materials, which was, I think, one of my favorite requests, because as you can see, the home looks a lot softer against the backdrop. And I think we've met all the requirements.
Thank you.
Sorry. So with that, I think that covers everything. Any questions?
I have a question for you. It's mentioning a recommendation for further review, Jason, says, footings are encroaching into the riparian zone.
Yeah, we have that. So what we did grade beam and pier foundation,
Seems here, yeah.
grade beam and pier foundation, is that on there? If it's not, I brought it with me. Mike? There you go. All right, you got it here. See here, we have a pier and grade beam foundation.
Right.
So that is inside of the envelope of the home, so this doesn't go into the 30-foot setback.
Was it spread footing before?
No, it wasn't, we just didn't make any distinction.
Uh-huh.
So I met with an
Pictures
engineer,
of that grade.
Mhm.
I know constructional engineer, he said, a grade beam and pier foundation is probably the best for the project to stay out of the riparian corridor and the buffer.
Got a lot of those kind of general anyway. So that's good, that's good. So that's what you're going with, Jason? Here,
Yep,
here in grading.
pier and grade beam. And that could be required. Any other questions?
There are some decks that are, extending out beyond the foundation. I guess they're not extending into the 20-foot buffer
Correct.
zone, which Camille explained to me you guys qualify for, but they are within the 30-foot zone. And I guess I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to either cantilever those decks and or relocate those downspouts so that they're at the 30-foot line, where they touch that, so that things which touch the ground are at the 30-foot line.
Absolutely, we can make that a requirement. We can move this downspout back to this corner.
Mhm.
Keep this corner, that one there, and then the decks do cantilever over the 30-foot. They don't actually.
We don't have posts
They
down.
don't have one post that
One
goes,
post.
and that one post is on this corner here, and it
Mhm.
helps carry this one deck, but all these other decks are actually cantilevered over.
Okay.
And they're actually cantilevered at, you got a picture of that. They're actually cantilevered, can we go back to the elevations? Look at that. So they're cantilevered, let's see, we could go to the west elevation. Or that elevation, that's fine right there.
Okay.
So thank you, appreciate it. I wish I had you in my office.
Yeah.
So we're cantilevered here,
Mhm.
and then we're cantilevered here, it doesn't touch grade, and then this post that comes down is the only thing that touches grade. And then, this deck in the front actually cantilevers in the front, so it doesn't touch grade until it meets the front driveway.
And is it enclosed underneath that, or is it open underneath?
It's open underneath that.
Uh-huh.
And it's gonna be like, pervious, it's gonna be a pervious deck.
It actually will be, yes,
Okay,
yes.
but then one of the decks is covered.
This one here is not covered, but this one here will be a roof deck.
Mhm.
I'll actually have tile on top. Because it's over a living area. But these are actually wood decks, so these decks here will be pervious, and this will be wood out to here.
Is that a problem putting the downspout like close to the foundation?
Not, well, we have drainage, so they are addressing that. And then we'll all go to a retention pit.
Okay, so it's okay that the downspout's close to them.
Yeah, that's fine, as long as it gets caught there.
And you haven't been able to dump water on the ground here in years.
Yeah, so here's the detention basin here,
Uh-huh.
so all the downspouts will go to all the drain will go to the detention basin, so these downspouts will catch, all the laterals to that. So,
Do you mind pointing out which like from this plan view, which post is the one that goes down?
that's it,
Oh, that.
And that's just carrying deck, or is it all
that's just
carrying
carrying
building?
deck.
And could that deck be cantilevered?
It probably could, we just added it because to save costs on structure, but if you want it to be cantilevered, I'm sure we can. The problem is sometimes you have to go 3 times the distance.
Yeah, you may
So
not have
if
it.
I'm cantilevering out here, I'm going double the distance, so I don't know structurally, it might be a moment frame.
Yeah, you'd have to go the other way. I think that could be, and we're not there yet, but that could be a suggestion.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions, or should we move to public comment?
We'll show you this here. This helps a little bit, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So here's the envelope, kind of showing the envelope of the structure here. You can see that. And then here's the neighboring property 771. Their kitchen windows right about here. So they get this complete view corridor. The riparian corridor comes across here and goes into right about there. So we push the building as far back and as far over as we possibly can do that.
Thanks.
Any additional questions at the moment? If not, then we can go ahead and open up public comment for item number 1. So public correspondence for this project received prior to the meeting has been uploaded to the webpage and it was provided to the CDRC. So let me move on to the speaker request forms that I have here in person. So first, David Allen.
I yield to, Rich.
Richard Klein? Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Klein, 771 San Carlos Avenue, of Granada, the adjacent property owner. So I say neighbors have supported every infill development in the neighborhood since we moved here 12 years ago. Each development respected the rules and norms and provided important additional badly needed housing. This proposed development is not infill, rather it extends into the Montecito riparian zone, ignores the rules and norms and should be denied. It's too wide and too tall. It's too wide because it encroaches on the riparian zone, relying on a decades-old map that had to guess where the riparian vegetation ended because of previous illegal clearing. The reality on the ground, easy to see just by looking at it, shows that mature willows now extend well beyond what the original map guessed. Let's use reality to guide us rather than an antique Band-Aid. And let's eliminate all the upper story protrusions, that's the cantilever you're talking about, that extend into the buffer. It's too high because other nearby houses on our side of the street are entered at or below street grade. A second story and basement, if present, are below street grade. Although this impacts the views on our side of the street, it minimizes the interference to our neighbors across the street. The proposed development goes both up and down, towering over our house and dominating the entire street, which the story poles really help to show. It's time to start over on this too big, too wide, too tall project that gobbles up protected riparian buffer and might also encroach on protected wetland. And while I'm at it, Jason, those piles of wood, the willow trees and fencing are a bit of a fire hazard. It would be nice if those could go away.
Any additional comments? Okay, thank you. The next comment, we'll move to David Allen.
Hi, David Allen, 736 San Carlos, directly across the street. I guess I don't really have much to say that we didn't say the first time. And a lot of the things refer more to zoning and the variances that are required rather than the architectural look. But just to repeat briefly, I think because the driveway is so narrow and there's a fire hydrant 3 feet away from the driveway, I'm very concerned about fire hazards. I mean, the ability of the fire department to respond. And the street being narrow, with an ADU, there's going to be a lot of additional parking, probably 3 cars more parked down the street. And there literally won't be room for anyone to even drive in. Like I think one of the speakers was saying last time, the person who was directly across the street, a friend was parked outside and was sideswiped by a FedEx truck that was trying to get by. So I think because, especially because this has an ADU, And the probable likelihood of 3 additional cars parking on that street, it's just gonna be very cramped, and we're worried about both fire and any emergency sort of thing that might happen. I agree with Rich's comment about being too tall and requiring, going way too close to the riparian zone. I'm not sure if we can get, an official survey. I think we could request the owner, but I'm not sure they would agree, to do a more modern survey. So those are some of the reasons that, I object to this, and I think the other neighbors who aren't here, will probably repeat the same objections themselves. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I didn't donate my request.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. So next up, Jen Allen.
Hi, Jen Allen, 736 San Carlos. So I just want to say, I think the house looks much better, I can say that, way better than the first round. And against that little green field that your picture shows, it's gorgeous. I'd love to live there. That is not what that looks. When you came up and you saw those story poles just hulking over the end of the street, that first time we did, everyone was like, what the hell? It's right by the road. It's massive. It's just way too big for the space. It's a beautiful home, but that's not the place for it. Put in a 1 or 2 story small house, no ADU. I know we need housing. I get that. Like I said, the lot is too narrow. And there's also a problem with drainage down to the house below. A lot of times the house below this lot gets flooded out. This could be made even worse. So we're worried about all of these things, but really worried about people getting to the end of our street. The garbage trucks trying to get by have trouble, everybody has trouble. And you're putting in a 2-car garage, a huge house with an ADU. There's no way that you're only gonna have 2 cars parked in there. And they're not gonna use their garage for storage. There's just no way. So the original plan said it wouldn't disrupt parking, it said it wouldn't disrupt that, it's disrupting all of that. So the said house looks great now, but I'm just against where it's located, and we have to be very careful. And there's an attitude of going in and saying, hey, there's willows there that could be riparian, we'll just take a chainsaw, take care of that problem, which was done. And that's not fair. I mean, it's like several hours of cutting willows down to pretend that the lot is, and it is. So I really think we need new surveys, we need to look at this really carefully. And we need to think about the neighborhood into which the house is going, and not just the pretty picture of the house. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Next speaker, Roel.
Yes, my name is Rolf Montoya. I've been living at 730 San Carlos Street since 1990. So I know a little bit about the history. About 17 years ago, maybe about 18 years ago, the lot was for sale, and people looked at it, and Lou and Deb, who live on 401 Paloma Street, looked at it and decided it was unusual because it was very area. Then my wife also met a Canadian man who was looking to build a house for his father, and he came to the same conclusion. He said this lot is unbuildable because of the riparian constraints. Okay, so I don't think it can be built, and I also agree with the previous speaker that, it's car situation is going to be bad. And I agree that it looks a lot better than last time, but if you would draw this house next to the neighboring house, you would see exactly how far it towers above the neighboring house. Like the top story is fully above the ridge of the neighboring house, so they have a good view over the house into the south direction. And also, when you look at the front of the house, you'll see that it's almost like a single-story house that's been set on its side to try to fit within the area. It's really out of proportion. I mean, you don't see that from the side elevation, but you would see it from the front elevation that it's really too tall. It doesn't fit in the neighborhood. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you for your comments. So I have no additional speaker request forms for those who are here in person. Next, we will move on to those joining us online. So first we'll call Elizabeth Lacasia, and please begin by stating your name, address, and email address for the record.
I believe Elizabeth is the project owner.
Hello, I'm sorry, I don't know how I got in the queue. Sorry about that.
Okay, not a problem. Okay, next we will go to Jason.
Hi, my name is Jason Miller. I live at 161 Harbor Drive in El Granada. My email is jmmwater@gmail.com. And my comments are pretty simple. I grew up here and just returned, thankfully, and we know there's more development and some of it's done really well. And I simply want to say that the architectural design should be complimented. It's aligned at least with the neighborhood. And I don't want to disparage other projects, but it's not going to create a hodgepodge of houses if that's built. So I just really wanted to comment on the design, and it looks nice, the coastal craftsman, and I'm happy about that. The other issues, if it meets the zoning, I mean, I think it's going to be a beautiful project if it can meet the committee's needs, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we'll move on to Tim.
Hello.
Hi, Tim, we can
my
hear you.
My name's Tim Emmett. I live across the street at 53. As I understand this is design review. For context, I'm a director of design here at Apple in Cupertino, and I work in the industrial design team. So we design all your cell phones, all your laptops, iPads, etc. So I feel like I can speak to the idea of what a good design is. And I think in this review, whilst I don't know a lot about architecture, I do know a lot about what's fit for purpose. And what I can very confidently say, as others have said, is that the scale of this property really is unbecoming of the scale of the property, the land. And what it will do with building this property is be a bad design for the street. Like, it is going to cause problems. That is not up for debate. And I think I really want people to really think about what good design is here, because whether you cross the I's and dot the T's on a building having the correct overhangs for something that is, really shoehorned into the space, like a good design really has to be fitting. And we've seen these images where it's taken completely out of context. And sure, it's a nice house if you live in the middle of nowhere, but it very clearly isn't in the middle of nowhere, which is why we're all here. And it's extraordinarily frustrating to see this proposed as a good design when it's objectively a poor design. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, Kathleen Klein.
Hi, my name is Kathy Klein. I live at 771 Santa Carlos Avenue. And mostly I'm confused by both the polls that were put up and also the drawings that were submitted. The story polls do not seem to have any connection whatsoever to the house drawings regarding the height, the depth into the lot, or the width. And the drawings, let me see the numbers here. The plans on the computer are also very confusing with the house. On the A10 drawing, it's the south side of the house, shows the south side level. with the middle story level, with the middle story of this house, level with the garage level and the street level. But the A11 drawing shows the front of the house with the bottom level of the garage level with the street, but the front door into the house is 4 or 5 feet higher than the street level. So that makes a big difference. One side of the house is level with the street. The other side of the house is 4 or 5 feet higher than the street. So that's confusing. Also, the parking spaces that they have in front of the house now, they appear they could be extending out into the street. And there also is the problem that they could be in front of the fire hydrant. I'm not sure because the designs are confusing. But the second parking that is next to, closer to the riparian zone, it very well could be over our emergency turnaround. So I'm confused. I'd like to know if the parking spaces in fact extend out into the street, and it's a no parking street, so that doesn't make sense. And also from looking from our house, well, it looks like I don't have enough time, but looking from our house, the only deck that was shown on the house is the 3rd floor, and it actually is 2.5 feet lower than our level street, our street level story. And if the side of the house is in fact 4 or 5 feet higher, their street level, supposedly street level house, that would be 4 feet up from our floor. So it's very confusing. Neither the poles nor the drawings make any sense whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, Elizabeth.
Hello. My name is Elizabeth Emma Torres. I also live across the street from the proposed property. I wanted to just reiterate the fact that as a design committee, you should really take into consideration not only what the house is upkeeping with other homes, but it's whether it's upkeeping with the lot. I wanted to kind of double down on that. It might be a legal 7,000 square feet parcel, but the buildable area is just a small percentage of that. And the house that's being built is not upkeeping with the parcel, with the amount of buildable area that is available. So taking that into consideration, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that we really think about it in terms of its realistic impact on a very on an environment, or on an environmental area that's very susceptible to changes, that has a lot of ripple effects, not only in our neighborhood, but the neighborhood downstream towards the sea, so the broader area of El Granada. And I really, the house is monstrous, is absolutely monstrous. So why an ADA? An ADU? Why create so much space when you have such little area to build on? I really want everybody to consider that carefully, because it's not just about building something that looks good on a decontextualized plan. Contextually, this house is not in keeping with either the neighborhood or the lot that is being built in. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item, either online or in person? I'll wait a couple seconds to see. Okay. Lenny Roberts. Lenny Roberts, feel free to unmute and begin speaking.
Yes, now can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm Lenny Roberts. I'm speaking for Green Foothills, formerly Committee for Green Foothills. We've commented on this site for a number of years because of the problematic nature of the site. It has sensitive habitats. As you know, it has riparian zone, and it also has documented wetlands from a prior survey that was done in 2004. And we object to the conclusion in the project description and in the analysis that the definition of wetlands eliminates this site, because the definition of wetlands as the county's LCP was done back in 1980. And the 12 wetland species that are included in that definition were supposed to indicate typical plants, not exclusive only plants in the wetlands. Tony Corelli, Coastside botanist and author, has she's documented and made public presentations about the arroyo willow, which is the willow that is on this property, the most common willow along the coast that is found in both riparian and wetland habitats. So we believe that the evaluation of the setbacks needs to be revised, be due to the wetlands that are present on the lower portion of the property. You have more details in my letter. And we also believe that if you strictly applied the wetland setbacks, which is 50 feet, it would make this site very difficult to develop, except for a very, 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 very tiny home. However, there are provisions in both the Coastal Act and the county's procedures to do an analysis that allows some development, but not the extent of the development that is proposed today. So thank you for your consideration of our comments.
Thank you. Okay, that is the last speaker I see. Is there anyone else that would like to provide a public comment on this item? Either in person or online. I will give a couple moments. Okay, seeing none, Chair, please indicate if you would like to close the public comment.
Close public comment.
Okay, we'll now limit the discussion between the committee members, staff, and the applicant.
If Mark or April has a comment, would you take them as a public comment?
Okay,
Yeah.
so with that, let us reopen up public comment.
Okay, well, yeah.
Okay,
Mark Din, CDRC member. I was the voting member on this item at the September, or at the.
Yes.
Like at the prior meeting. So just maybe sort of for some context, this project was approved in 2023 with a considerably different design. What we had reviewed for a couple months back, yeah, it was a larger, more boxy design, and it looks like there were some considerations made towards that, towards addressing the comments from the design. I guess my primary comment I'd like to make is that, you know, I have also driven by the area, and some of the comments in our continuance letter about the size and scope of the building has to do not just with the adjacent property, but has to do with the properties within that block. And you can see it on Google Maps as well. There, you know, is a sloping area where you do see, you know, multi-story buildings. Typically one story from the street part, and then, you know, larger downslope. So that, yeah, that's I guess the primary comment I'd like to make. I know that, you know, design doesn't just mean what's currently in the area, but there's room for changes in the neighborhood. Changes is, you know, is something that we all have to address and deal with. At the same time, you know, it is subjective. Does it fit into the scale of an existing neighborhood? I think the current design does not, but, you know, does it fit into a changing, evolving area? I think that's up for debate, so let's leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. April, any comments on this item?
I just wanted to clarify that the negative declaration, the assessment that was done on the environmental impact, that was available in the file too, correct?
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
correct,
So the public had access to that?
correct.
Yeah, there's a hyperlink in the agenda.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have.
Can I ask two questions, in fact?
Please go ahead.
They're quick for the plans. There was, I think the version of the plans that's available online to us is actually 2 generations back. Because it's quite different than what's being shown here. Is there currently a drive-in parking space to the right of the property? No, okay, because that would have overhung the regarding corridor, and that was one of the other comments.
No, sir, there's not.
Okay, great. So that means that say the 3 cars would be parked either in the 2-car garage or on the street.
Right, and just your concerns today, we don't take any of those lightly. We try to address all of them. And, I did speak with the owner, just recently before the meeting, and I shared more concerns with her. She did say if the ADU is a big concern, especially the parking, that she was willing to forfeit that. It'd be the same structure, it just wouldn't have that lower level ADU. So if that helps, the community, because she wants to be your neighbors, you know, and especially, Mr. Klein, your residents, you submitted in 2014 a building deck, within the riparian corridor buffer. And, they came and did a biology report, they reported.
No, not true. Okay, so we went to, we wanted to extend the deck. We were told we could not because we were within the 50 feet of the riparian corridor. So we didn't. We were denied by the county on that. So, and there wasn't any biology report associated with that. It was straight up, by the numbers. They said, your footprint's as big as it's gonna ever get. You can't get within 50 feet because we didn't get 30 foot,
Right.
And, that's the law, and
No,
we
I
understand the law.
Right. But
Maybe-
the deck, there was a deck at 771 that was taken down and rebuilt, and was rebuilt in that setback. And what I'm just trying to say is that I think there has to be a spirit of compromise in the community to allow this person, she's following all the requirements, she's following all the code requirements, all the height limitations, square footage. She's, been fighting this fight for 20 years. And so I just wanted to just make that known that he's, been trying, to accommodate everyone. But if in fact it helps to remove the ADU, that's something that she'd be willing to do. And that's something.
So I mean.
So for the sake of the meeting, we will, at the moment, it's still public comments and not necessarily back and forth between applicant.
But anyway,
public.
that's something that she mentioned to me. But as it is now, is all we're gonna propose. And if we get to that point later, that's fine, but.
So just to understand, that would keep the square footage, the design, the layout of the house the same, but just maybe fewer inhabitants. Because
Correct.
Okay, I understand. And sorry, my second quick question, the driveway appears to be less than 3 feet away from the fire hydrant. Is that something, and maybe this is because the N-2 plan, but when the story poles were up, I actually took a yardstick. It's less than 3 feet away from the edge of the house. So I'm wondering if you have any comment about that.
Yeah, fire will address all those concerns. If the fire hydrant has to be moved or something has to happen, they'll let us know. Right now, it's just architectural review. This is not really fire yet.
Okay, so with that, Chair, would you like to close a public comment?
I really would, yes.
Okay. So with that, then, discussion will be limited between staff and the applicant and committee members.
Okay.
I should go first.
Okay, I'll go first. I want to start by saying that there's a lot of concerns here that I think are legitimate and important that have been raised by neighbors, which, are not within our purview to speak on, and that we will be making a recommendation based solely on the design guidelines about the design of the house. And the question of whether wetlands are present and the question of the delineation of the riparian corridor are issues that I recommend community members bring up at the Camille, help me out here. There will be a planning, we don't obviously have a date because we would, we need to pass this separate. But that's the appropriate venue to bring those up. Those are the people who can make rulings on that. Camille, I want a little more clarification from you too, because the question about the use of the 20-foot corridor as opposed to the
Yes.
30-foot corridor hinges on the notion that there is no other site, no other area on the site available for development, correct?
Yes.
Is that something we are allowed to speak on?
I can I make a clarification on that? So this is adjoining, well, it's a little far from it, but it's adjoining a intermittent stream, which is subject to a 30-foot buffer zone, while a perennial stream that has water in it all year round is a 50-foot, requires a 50-foot buffer zone. So, and there's a finding in the LCP that, or a policy, I should say, that if there's no feasible, place to develop on a property, that the county could allow a 20-foot buffer instead. This project really, mostly, I would say, complies with the 30-foot setback. There are some cantilevers and a duck post between the 30 and the 20. So this project actually isn't asking for the 20. It's still actually complying with the 30.
Except for those.
Except for those little exceptions, so, I mean, we feel that the applicant is making clearly a big effort towards complying with the 30. And the stuff that does overhang is, like, say, pervious, except for that one covered deck, which would allow still, water and plants, say, with, should they establish within, between the 30 feet and the 20 feet to perhaps still thrive.
So are we, is it within our purview to agree or disagree with staff on that?
I think it does affect, site planning, and site planning is within the purview of the
Okay.
CDRC, and I mean, so I think it would be relevant, if you wanted to share your.
Okay. And then, the other issue, which we're actually really kind of forbidden to speak about, is the ADU. Although I do think you correctly identified that, it seems like a big concern for the neighbors, aside from the wetlands, is the height of the structure, and that is not affected by the ADU, so I don't think it's that pertinent. Personally, my feeling is that, the area which is outside of the 30-foot buffer zone is quite limited on this site. And I do think that the applicant has done a good job of staying within that zone, and I think that the entire structure, including the garage and the ADU at 1,832 square feet, is not what I would call a big house. But I would say there is an area, a small area available for development. So as I read it, I don't see any reason that a variance should be granted to allow encroachment up to 20 feet, since there is development possible up to the 30-foot setback. And then I also, can we look at a section or an elevation? Can you tell me what the highest height is from natural grade to highest point? Because I thought you said some numbers in the 30s, and if this is at 17, the limit is 28 feet, right?
I think it depends on the slope.
I think that's not the uphill
Here
dimension.
we go. So this is, so the limit's 36 feet.
And that's because of the uphill sewer
Yeah.
connection?
And so that we're
Okay.
following grade, that's the whole stepping up the grade.
Mhm.
So this first, we're at 35 feet here, and then I'll give you, we actually have it here.
That's okay. I think it was anything in the 30s that I was wondering about why we were over 28, but Camille has explained the reason for me.
The exception for this.
It's the uphill sewer
It gets
connection,
that
right,
attention.
Jason? You have an
What's that?
uphill sewer connection?
Excuse me?
You have an uphill sewer connection?
Yes.
Okay. And And could you go to the other, side view? Side would be, yeah, this view. So, Jason, sorry, because I wasn't here last time. Last time we saw this, it was all stucco, and now you've added the
Yes.
siding in response to a specific comment
Right,
from us.
Correct.
So, just on this one side, me personally, I probably wouldn't put it on that second vertical tower.
This one here,
Yeah, no, the first one, the one that was existing, not the new one that you added.
This here?
That one, that punches out at the second story,
you
right?
would rather have that stucco?
I would rather have that stucco, personally.
Mhm.
That's subjective, not objective, but it seems to me that what you've established is that you have the stucco, I'm sorry, the siding at the base, and then it flies up in that one place. You mentioned, that you weren't sure what the percentages were, and the percentage, it doesn't need to be like 50-50. I think actually the front looks great to me in terms of the, delineation.
We can leave this all stucco if that's a recommendation.
I think that would be my recommendation. My other question on this facade, that same one is, how come there's no windows there on any of the levels? It's kind
Well,
of a
we
big
would be
blank wall.
looking into the client's home.
Uh-huh,
and we're
okay, so
trying to
it's
be
for
sensitive to
privacy,
that. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I think that aside from the, comment or question I made at the beginning about the downspouts and the post, that those are the only comments, what do you think?
Well, first thing I want to do is I want to make a community statement to everyone here. I am a lifelong Coastside resident, been here since 1966. And from 1975 to probably 77, my friends and I had a bike track right where all the old homes are and where this home is up there. And I spent every day after school, every kid in town that rode a motocross bicycle, we were all over there all the time. And I'm intimately familiar with that area. We used to dam the creek down there for fun. We did all kinds of crazy things. So from a personal standpoint, looking at it as I grew up here, seeing that area develop was a little bit disturbing for me personally. But I also realized, that's kind of what's happening on the coast. I mean, people are moving here. It's a nice place, and it just. But what has always stayed with me on the coast, in general, is people are pretty good neighbors here. People get along pretty well, and I would love to see this project work for everyone involved. And I know that's a difficult ask, but saying that, there are a lot of things that were correctly pointed out, we really can't speak about. It's out of our purview. And there is a forum for that, which would be the planning commission. But I think in light of what went on with the last meeting and what was addressed, and I think your comments, I really think the building for what we are allowed to look at is an acceptable, it's an acceptable architectural building, which is really what we're here for, is to comment on design. So I think you've done a good job, Jason. I think you addressed the comments that were made at the last meeting. I think they've been addressed well. I think you've got a couple of suggestions to work with that were made here that I think are good, but I really think the project, considering the limitations and considering what has to be worked around, looks really pretty good at this point. I think it's good. And that's where I stand on it. Thank you.
I've got one more question. What's the plate height of the upper floor?
What?
What's the plate height of the upper floor?
The plate height on the upper floor
Yeah, how
is,
tall are the ceilings?
oh, the ceilings are 8 foot. 8 foot, 8 foot. This is gonna have a vault. These are gonna be vaulted ceilings up here.
But the plate's at 8?
Yeah,
The plate's not pushed up to 9 or anything, right?
no.
Okay, well, can't ask, less than
And during building,
that.
during building,
Was hoping he was gonna say 10, it'd be like.
no, it's really a tiny home. As close to
No,
1,800 square feet.
Yeah, it is,
compared
it
to-
is tall for where it is, because the 28 foot is the standard, and houses which have to make an uphill connection to their sewer do have an exception, which allows them to be taller. I mean, I do think that the house is not that tall at the street, and the tallest part of the volume is stepped back from the street, which I think will help the, impact on the view corridor for the neighbors across the street. It would be, yeah, it would be great if it were less tall, but I don't, it's a 4 and 12 roof.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, even if we were to ask for it to go to a 3 and 12 roof or something, which would not look as good, it wouldn't have a dramatic impact. So, I think that the issues pertaining to the wetland, render only as defined currently, render a pretty small portion of this lot developable. And I feel like it is really beyond my, qualifications to weigh in on whether the way it has been defined is correct. And I encourage you guys to bring those up at the planning commission meeting. I would say that, I do think, I actually reviewed this not last time, but a previous time that this came here. And I do think that great strides have been made to meet the guidelines we have here. So, I think the thing about where I would put the siding is a small and easy thing, right? The bigger issue, which I wonder whether works for the applicant to move forward with, would be if anything which is between the 30-foot and 20-foot zone can be cantilevered such that there are no posts or no downspouts coming down, then I would feel like everywhere the building is touching the ground, it's outside of what is currently defined as the edge of the buffer zone. I mean, it's possible, based on the consideration you raised, although I think you could rotate your framing the other way, that you wouldn't then be able to get that upper deck if you wouldn't be able to cantilever it. So that would be a question for your engineer, but I wouldn't make the condition that you can't have it. I would only condition that, anything which is beyond that 30-foot zone not touch the ground. And then I would, make that recommendation around the siding change. And that's it. That's all I would have.
I have two thoughts.
Yeah.
Or three thoughts even. Is the deck, because I've seen other projects built cantilevered over vegetation, and I've seen that the vegetation dies if it's under a deck that's impervious. If it's pervious, if it lets water through, the vegetation can live.
It will be pervious.
It would still be, so even though it's covered, I think the rain can still come in a little bit.
I think they have one deck, which is a roof deck, and that's
It's a very,
that's in the 30, that's outside the buffer.
and
zone, right?
that's very little bit of that will be, it's this part right here.
Mhm.
And yes, it is pretty much outside.
But is that, you're saying that's roof deck, is the floor below also
The floor below is this angle.
is it the
This is,
angle?
this is the walls below.
Mhm.
And then the deck just cantilevers like this.
So it's not a roof deck because it's not over structure. So is it pervious or
We
impervious?
can't make it pervious, yes, that would be pervious.
Yeah.
But this area here is a roof deck.
Right,
So, but that's outside the 30-foot.
I get it, a little bit of
And
it,
then
yeah, I see that, okay.
We could do a moment frame here where we do structural steel here, structural steel
Mhm.
here. And cantilever out some structural steel to
Mhm.
catch up post so that they could still have a deck. So we can accommodate you on that.
Okay, I mean, I think that we would wanna write it so that it was flexible for your client, because frame's expensive and probably about to get more
And it's
expensive.
not-
But it would be their choice. The only condition I would say is anything which is beyond that 30-foot zone has to be cantilevered and pervious. And then it's up to you. You either don't have it or you do have it. and
It's
you-
pervious just at the bottom. I mean, it's
Yes.
kind of impervious because it has a story on the top,
Right.
but, like sideways rain and stuff, maybe.
It's just, can I ask you a question, Camille?
Yeah.
My understanding of between 30 and 20.
Yeah.
There is an allowable amount of encroachment for certain things, correct?
It's not.
I mean, they could have asked for a 20, in which case that
Right.
whole buffer area would have been built out, but they're.
Right, but my point, I get it, but my
Yeah.
point is,
So in a sense, encroachment is fine.
we're talking about a 6x6 post,
That's all,
right? So they could have asked to encroach in it and didn't, and now we're gonna
but we
push back on.
kind, we're able to
post.
support it honestly because they didn't. So I think we're still
Right,
trying to
I'm
like.
not, I'm just trying to get clear,
Okay,
like,
we
is
wanna
that
still
an
keep the
absolute
line
no?
there a little bit.
Right. Okay,
It's a great point, though. I mean, I don't wanna commit your client to $50,000 worth of steel.
That's what we're starting to look at.
Because
I
of
mean,
the
just as
one
far as-
6x6 post. But I'm also sensitive that we have a room full of people here,
Totally.
who, are concerned about the impact on the riparian corridor. And as I read it, the development is allowed to the 30-foot line, and I'm seeing development that is past the 30-foot line.
An argument could be even made for the 20-foot line, but the fact is that. Yeah, there's a little bit of gray area regarding the stuff in
Right.
between the 30 and the 20.
I know it's really difficult to interpret how to access,
Yeah,
I actually had a friend that, I worked with years ago that owned a lot in this area, and he finally, he offered to sell it to me for what he bought it for back in when it like 30,000. I'm like, no, thank you, I don't want it. But while he considered, he just was like, I can't believe this, I don't think I can do anything with this. I just know this can be very, it can be very frustrating for everyone involved, for neighbors, for the project applicants.
yeah.
It's just unfortunate that it is so contentious.
I mean, I'd say because that area is in the gray area, that area is like, kind of on the chopping block, like more than anything else a little bit, just from the design review and from the planning commission standpoint. So it's an easy kind of give to those, who's concerned about the riparian.
And that's in the conversations that we've had with Camille, it's not uncommon to build up to the 20-foot setback. It's not uncommon to get that allowance. We decided not to even approach that because of the delicate area we were in, mostly because of the neighbors. So we pushed it all the way back to the 30, and all we really put out there was the post. Everything cantilevers over it was pervious. So we had that conversation at the first.
Way long time ago, and we actually encouraged him to encroach into the front setback instead of encroaching into the riparian. So that's how he was able to.
You are encroaching into the front setback, right?
Well, originally we had this area here where we end up cutting this back, so we had this wider. And we actually cut it way back, just so that we could still be at the 30-foot.
Well, and they have a 3-foot front setback. I mean, at the closest point, they're 3 feet from the front property line. So that's what the variance. Yeah.
Right.
So that's how they're
So
able to get.
we all work together to get this little sliver of pie to try to build a home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. So I think that I could, support a recommendation to move this to the next level if everything which encroaches beyond the 30-foot buffer zone is pervious, with all of the downspouts moved back to the house, and with a suggestion to cantilever that stack if feasible. Again, I don't think that having to do a steel monoframe is in fact better for the environment than having one 6x6 post. So, but I'd ask your engineer to look at it, because I do think it might be possible if the framing were run the other way without that. And then with the recommendation for that 2-story punch out on the east facade.
Can we show that, at least? Actually, I had a suggestion about that.
Here.
Yeah, I would make that 2-story bump out stucco. I think that actually feels more balanced on that facade to me.
Do you feel that dormer, or what do you call it? Gable.
The gable.
Makes it taller on that side, and it's not necessary because that's
you're doing that to break the eave.
It's a fireplace.
Those are there's fireplaces up there.
And I feel like it adds height.
Yeah.
Where the height is the greatest, perhaps. And then with the vertical boards, I feel like height is really accentuated.
I think the stucco.
But I think the stucco on the top floor
Yeah.
will like reduce the verticality.
Is the rotated gable something there you added to break the ridge line to increase articulation?
Yes, articulation.
I think the neighbors would probably rather it was lower. I think it's a good point.
Looking at the perspective,
Mhm.
If you take the roof, if you looked at it straight on, that's gonna be lower than the ridge.
So here's
If you look at it from
a view of this, actually.
Oh, yeah, it's not that.
There you go, that's much
Yeah.
better.
So
So it's more pronounced with that view that he has.
The articulation is like if it moved towards the middle where it wasn't as tall, like maybe even
So
over
if
that
I
window.
just make this, if I just keep this going, there's no interruption of this roof line.
Mhm.
So
I mean, could you
architecture,
put it here instead?
well, this is where the fireplace is, so we're gonna have a fireplace here, in the living room, fireplace in the main bedroom. So what we could do is we could just
Yeah.
shed roof this
Do that.
and get rid of that. Although
Yeah.
architecturally, I think it looks,
I like the articulation, but, I think that it is making it taller. I mean, I see Camille's point that it might be,
Yeah.
it might be better for the
3 stories of
neighbors.
siding.
Mm-hmm,
well, I
That'll
definitely
get
like
broken
that.
up
I'm
to make
okay
that
with,
stuff
again, I was trying to keep the
yeah,
articulation
I know.
percentage, which is kind of a, we don't know yet what that is, but, so if you want, I would rather do that stuff, but I think
I
we
would rather-
originally wanted it to be stucco, but again, we were trying to put,
Right, I know it's hard to try to design to get a committee.
well, like we said earlier, it's very subjective.
Yeah,
In this
yeah.
particular project especially, the articulation is one of those things,
Mm-hmm,
boxy is another one,
I,
materials are another one, but originally it was all stucco, so I think we maybe went too far with this, and we can definitely remove that.
yeah, I would make that stucco again, I think it will make that not feel so much like a tall vertical tower. And with regards to the gable over it,
We'll make that a shade.
I don't, I mean, I could go either way. I think it looks nice here. If it would reduce the impact for any of the neighbors for that ridge to just come down, then I think that would be better for the neighbors.
And yeah, just so you know, this is roughly.
It's not much, yeah.
Because this is 2x8,
Mm-hmm.
so we're literally maybe 10 inches up on that.
The neighbor who's on that side is here, right?
Yeah,
That's you?
I gotta say, I like the gable.
Oh, you
I,
do?
Okay.
I don't, it doesn't actually take it up further,
It's not gonna impact your.
you know, and
Okay, alright.
that's exactly what we're gonna be looking at.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you look out and it's boom right there.
Mhm.
Where did you put the gable? I'm not saying move the front of it, I'm just saying move the gable here. I think it would look better, don't you think? No? It just didn't.
I don't have the, I don't.
Doesn't,
I
I don't know, it's like.
I can see what,
I can tell you if I like it when I see it, but I can't tell you what.
From the neighbors across the street, right, sorry, let me just point.
Right, is the gable
This
gonna,
is the big thing, because we're looking down this way, right,
This is
and,
the big.
yeah, I mean, the Rich's house, the other one is like, the high point is here, literally to the same scale, it's there. The
Mhm.
high point of their house.
The whole story.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, I don't think this is.
Our
gonna
house.
be-
Right.
So, sorry, yeah, no, I agree with you, this doesn't make any difference,
Yeah.
this whole thing here, right, so when we're looking from up here, this is what we see, and it's so much higher than the neighbor's house, which is right there.
Then the only way to adjust the scale of the house is to make it void with Richard's house.
Yeah.
And his house next to it.
Or look at the
Then
story
you see
pole,
the
that they came down.
So anyway, I agree on the stucco. I agree, we totally agree, Elizabeth, said we could agree here.
Okay.
So stucco's fine, and that's what she originally wanted anyway, so
Okay.
I think they're helping us.
Yeah, I think that the shingle band at the first floor and then popping up just at the ADU entry is sufficient articulation of materials on this facade.
On this, yeah.
Yeah,
And, it sounds like Mr. Klein likes that also.
There was a previous.
and it's a flat roof.
That upper story is more kind of centered, which, yeah.
Just so you know, that plan there, let's go back to the plot plan. The plan he just showed you went into the 30-foot, and that's where we had to come back and redesign it. So you
Yeah, I
could-
know, it's pretty small.
And there's no other homes, really no other homes in the area that have the flat or shed,
Yeah,
except for one.
when you go back to the elevations, So just to the other neighbor's point, I actually think the design is better like this, but if it's affecting someone's view specifically, if this were hipped at the back, wouldn't look as good from the back as far as the building is, but would that reduce the impact on any of the neighboring homes?
Here's the rear of the property.
Yeah, it's cute. Mhm.
Yeah, it's horrible. So I, that's the concern of one of you.
Mhm.
Again, we're trying to. We have a gable here. a gable
Right,
here.
you've got your roof forms, it wouldn't make sense to.
And I don't know that it's gonna change it that much because it's a low pitch by
Mhm,
the time.
mhm.
Yeah, if you hit that,
Right,
it's just
comes
not gonna.
down.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be enough. It's not gonna make a difference as opposed to the architecture.
Mhm.
It'll look worse, I think.
I think so, I just
I
wanted.
mean, from the back though,
Yeah.
just looking at the back, nobody's.
There is quite a few neighbors.
There's
But
neighbors
it's
down.
higher.
Oh, really? Oh, there's some neighbors. They have to like.
Mhm.
Might get on the roof of my house and look up there, Jason.
I can see that a lot actually from the Jeep below.
Yeah, yeah.
You can see the
Poles,
story
when the poles were there.
So we want to see it.
That, I think the house looks tall in these drawings because this house is narrow.
Yeah, so I brought this to kind of
Story
show.
will show.
It's, but it's a.
Here's other homes.
Uh-huh.
You guys probably familiar with these homes. These homes were also built because they were on the narrow lots, so they had a little footprint.
Yeah.
So you can see they had the same issues
Mhm.
and of course they were approved. So it just shows you when you have a narrow area to work with, you're gonna have, it's gonna look a little taller and skinnier than a home that's actually can be 40 feet wide.
I think the main thing though is if you look on the side with the articulation and you actually put the neighbor's house there, you would see that it's at least 15 feet taller than the neighbor's house.
Well, it is taller. I mean, these are
Yeah,
subject
you
to
can
a.
see- you can see here, right? So
height limit.
if you project this,
Yeah,
it comes at the middle, I mean, it comes like at the bottom of the second floor. The entire second floor sticks above their roof line.
it
And
is,
that's why
it's
it blocks
tall.
the view.
It's, and that is, I see that that's aside from the wetlands, of the issues that we're allowed to address. I see that as the biggest issue, but also this house has a 36-foot height limit and it's complying with that. And so, when applicants comply with the limit, we're not supposed to ask them to make further reductions. And that is why I, but I did ask about the plate height, because if there was some fat to trim, I was gonna ask if they would be open to that, but I don't think there is, so, that's all I have.
If I can just say to me, this is my problem with story poles. I just, I don't know if anybody gets anything valuable from that. What
Well,
else?
you can see the top roof line, right? I mean, that's.
Right, but I think, I'm beating the dead horse because the recommendation's already been made, but I've heard somebody, I can't remember who, but we much rather would have seen the house illustrated in scale with the others, to me, that just feels like so much superior than this, but if that's the height, that's, the point being made is that they are complying. And that's, our hands, we are not a regulatory, we don't set and change things, we just interpret.
John, I was just gonna
what's
say,
there.
do you have an issue with the story poles in situ or an issue with a photograph of the story poles?
No, I just don't feel it's an accurate representation, I don't think it's.
In situ or just like in a photo that we're talking about in a meeting?
In this case, it did give us a good sense of how close the house was to where the willows are.
I do understand.
And there was no other way to know that, because the original drawing, as I understood it, didn't show that,
Right.
how close it was.
And it's, drawings are hard for a lot of people who aren't
They are, yeah.
trained professionals to
It's all
interpret.
difficult, really, to be
Yeah.
honest.
And I kind of think, the optics, right, this is gonna be the tallest house because of the constraints and a very tough buildable lot, just in terms of the neighborhood's adoption of it, it's a tough pill to swallow, right? Like, we know this is a challenging lot, and yet it's gonna end up being the tallest house, right? But at the same time, the project is constrained because of a lot of the other conditions to have to build up. And so I understand why they're doing it, and unfortunately, you know, it is going up instead of out, even though it's a 7,000 square foot lot, but a lot of that lot is in.
Right, and I think, and Camille, this stuff probably has nothing to do with this, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, but being me, I'm gonna ask it anyway. In a situation like this, with a 7,000 foot parcel, and the actual usable area, what is the county's position as far as assessments and taxes on that? Is it still taxed as a 7,000 foot parcel, or is there some kind
I'm
of
sure
relief?
they've probably been, I don't know, we have to ask Elizabeth, I don't know if we wanna go there honestly, but,
Okay, I'm just
yeah.
curious, you know, it's.
I don't know, I'm not talking. It's interesting, but the appraiser, it'd be interesting to look at the appraisal reports to see if the land value. is-
Exactly, because we're sitting here saying you can only use X amount, they've got this little thing squeezed in that's now tall.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if anybody in the opposite building from you has a different view when they're sending the tax bill out.
And I wonder why it's even a 7,000 foot legal parcel, because technically it's not a legal parcel. So why do we even call it that?
It's a
Well,
legal
technically
parcel,
it
it's
is
not, it's not a,
actually.
it's a legal parcel with
On the
large areas
edge.
that are not.
It's on the edge of our riparian. And there, unfortunately, I don't know why, but our zoning, residential zoning was applied to all these.
Or because back
And they're
in,
not even in the.
the day, they used to bring in a bulldozer and fill in the wetlands and flatten it out and build.
Yeah. So,
I don't technically did that on my street, because the stream runs under the street.
the zone is open space.
The creek that comes down from this area was put in a pipe, and that whole area in Overland was flattened over and built, and the creek comes out into the harbor now. It's down the pipe the other end.
Exactly.
That's what they're.
Just to make a note, homes across the street are quite a bit higher than this, because we actually, we shot the ridge, we shot across the
Yeah.
street, they are notably higher.
Yes, but they don't block any views because.
Is there's no behind
It's
them.
very
That's
steep
the
hill.
I do want to, point out, because there was a comment that came on over Zoom, and I don't know if those people are still here, but, the plans can be hard to read, but the front entry is at the same level as. the
Yeah.
Yeah,
back.
there's a perspective.
Yeah, it was, the rendering that you were looking at had a kind of perspective distortion that made it look taller. And it is true, I have friends
The
on the
renderings
block.
do have an optical illusion too. This is the front.
Yeah,
And so I think what we have access to is
Who's that
the
one?
N minus two.
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah,
that is at level, and it is true that there are homes on the street where you go down to enter. And that,
They just have no room in the back of the lot to do that.
yeah, yeah, but again, that would be a strategy, certainly if this were my lot, that I would look at, but it sounds like the design team has looked at it. And they've come up with something that pretty much meets the guidelines, so I think the bigger environmental concerns, you know, you guys will have another meeting to come back to. And that's the place for those concerns and for many, I think, from the Green and Foothills, that'll be the place to bring those concerns as well.
Are the plans available? Because I'm planning to make a drawing of the house,
The,
to the neighboring house.
yeah.
How on scale it is.
So the plans are available through the hearing website. Those are gonna be PDFs. Those aren't CAD plans. You would have to talk to the design team if you wanted access to any of their other plans.
I don't need details, I just want, I can scale.
Yeah, the PDFs are up online on the CDRC website, and you should be able to access those, and if you can't, you should reach out to Lewis.
But so I looked 2 days ago and the plans haven't been, the plan file hasn't been updated in 2 years. Which
No, I
means
saw these plans.
I've been working on the same plan, these plans that we've been showing.
from the public website.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
February,
I think where you're,
February 13th, 2020.
the previous ones are also available.
Today.
Mhm.
You can get to the previous
Exactly.
ones.
You may have looked at the September.
I looked at what was sent to us in the letter that was sent a couple weeks ago, but I can look again.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get the letter, so I don't know if there's a typo or a bad link there, but I used the link, I used the link
Agenda.
in the agenda.
That we mailed to us, yeah.
We just got a letter saying, no,
Yeah.
hearing.
So it's for February 13th and there's a corresponding website that had the plans.
Right.
The right plan
Oh,
that we've been working on and looking at this entire time.
Okay, because
Yeah.
when I clicked on it last week, I went to ones that were from the N-2, which very clearly showed
Okay.
the parking lot, parking space to the right.
I think maybe you clicked on the initial study neg deck, because the plans have changed from,
Okay,
that
well, I
was-
mean, if we
well,
can see, if we can.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was published. Yeah, a couple years back.
So the key thing to look at is whether there's two single garage doors, that'll tell us whether.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you see this rendering, you'll know you've got the current plans.
The plans aren't updated on the environmental document because it's kind of like a rearranging of like the interior forms. It's still relevant in terms of the impact in the environment. It's,
Okay, but, okay. we'll figure out
which
a way
is
to-
the focus of that.
Are we at a point where we're, so. Can I run these past you, make sure I'm,
Yeah.
what you got? So we're
Oh, I
done.
think I had to ask one first.
Yeah, normally we allow the applicant to make a decision whether you'd like the CDRC members to take a vote or have this scheduled for another meeting to address any comments you might have heard.
Take a vote, please. Thank you.
Okay. We want to talk about our recommendations before we do that, correct? So what I've got here is remove pole and repairing corridor and cantilever that deck rather than have the post. Did we agree on that?
I think that I would say, I'm kind of swayed by I think we could say any development beyond the 30-foot line needs to be impervious as a condition, I'm sorry, pervious as a condition and as a recommendation.
Okay,
Oh, right, pervious, and that the drain pipes need to be clear of that. And that as a recommendation, because there's only one that's not already cantilevered, right?
Only one post.
Right, so that as a recommendation, if the post can be replaced with a cantilever, that would be strongly recommended.
okay. So that's, I've got all those. I've got remove pole, that'll be a recommendation. Relocating downspouts in the riparian. Ensure any deck areas over riparian are permeable. Remove siding on pop out, replace with stucco. Okay, good,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
so I'll make a motion to recommend the project for approval based on the conditions that John just.
And I will second that.
Okay, with that, I will open it up to a roll call. John Stedman,
Yes.
Rebecca Catkin.
Yes.
This motion has passed. So next, this item will be reviewed by the planning commission for a decision at a later date.
Thank you.
And when will that date be made public to people, and will people, do our neighbors get a letter for that hearing like they did for this hearing?
They will be notified, prior to that hearing. I'm thinking it's gonna be 3 months from now, 2 to 3 months from now. The run up for our staff reports that we have to draft up for those hearings, the run up time is about 2 months.
And are those hearings available in person? Are they hybrid meetings also? Or
They are
only in
also
person?
hybrid.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the last item on the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, with that, I'll do a roll call. Rebecca Catkin,
Yes.
John Stedman,
Yes.
Mark Den,
Yes.
and April Bingham.
Yes.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
I know, man. Yeah, please, and, well, he's gonna send,
Why you
an
can't?
email me the plan. You also want